film is Bruce, of Bruce's kind of creative process.
It's about an artist who's wrestling with isolation and ultimately discovering the transformative power of vulnerability and reconciliation.
Trying to find something real in all the noise.
Always do.
It's a story about creativity, about protecting authenticity in an increasingly synthetic world.
Those songs, they're the only thing making sense to me right now. It's the only thing I can still believe in.
Then we'll get it.
There's a commitment to finding the truth he's trying to explore and share with no limitations, that he's going to honor the quest until he gets there.
Come on. To me, the film really looks at this isolated experience that we all have as human beings.
This had a real essence of truth and honesty and a purity to it.
Daddy?
Been outside.
It wasn't glossy in any way. It didn't pull no punches.
It was very emotional, and it says a lot about, father-son relationships and what it means to be an artist and just a human. And I thought, wow, this is not your typical music biopic movie. What are you calling that one?
I was gonna call it Starkweather. Now I'm thinking Nebraska.
May 2023, I was listening to Mark Maron's podcast, WTF, and Warren Zanes, whose book on Tom Petty I had read, was the guest that day, and he was there to talk about his new book, Deliver Me From Nowhere, The Making of Nebraska.
Warren Zanes got in touch with me and mentioned that he wanted to write a book on the making of Nebraska. He came down to my house, interviewed me a few times, and wrote the book. I loved it, and I figured that was going to be the end of it,
Warren said that John Landau gave him the biggest compliment on the book, which was that he made the mastering of a record read like an action thriller. I was like, now that sounds really interesting.
And so he decided he was going to grab the book. He called me and he said, I'm going to read this. I think there's something here. And knowing how many times people had attempted to make movies about Bruce, I was sort of like, well, we'll see what happens.
I reached out to Warren saying, loved your book. I really feel like there could be something here in terms of a movie. I'd love to connect with you.
What struck me was just this feeling of, I think this guy understands my book. He understood the emotion of it, and I think he understood the significance of it in relation to Bruce Springsteen's life and career.
Cameras are set. Stay back.
Giants like us, baby, we were born to run. Oh, giants like us, baby, we were born to run.
Bruce, he's just finished the tour for The River. It was his biggest tour to date, and following up The River with Nebraska.
He's all standing on the front.
We had listened to The River, and then Nebraska came. And the first reaction to Nebraska was one of confusion. Nebraska was this left turn that we couldn't make sense of, not immediately.
Love you, Bruce! Love you, heart!
But we trusted this artist to such a degree that we just kept playing that thing until it got into our bloodstream.
He's one of the great American storytellers. Just take away the music, just in terms of a storyteller. He's really captured the essence of the fabric of this country, and he talks about real life. His songs and his history are about a real working class upbringing.
It's a little flashier than I'm used to.
But it's awfully fitting for some devil rock stuff. I do know who you are.
Well, that makes one of us.
The thing about Warren's book is it was operating on so many levels, about the struggle of a mainstream artist to push back against expectations, both economic and personal.
You know how it goes. Once you have your first top 10, they want 3 for the next. Feed the machine.
That's not us, John. We've never been about singles, but the album. Right, the whole story.
The book really distills the dilemma of the film, which is this point of crisis in Bruce's life, certainly a crossroads. Success It's complicated for Bruce. These songs are about someone who is guilty, and he feels guilty of leaving behind the world he comes from, the world he knows.
Jon Landau is a supporter, he's protector, caretaker. It's a love story, you know, between these two men in a big way.
In this office, my office, we believe in Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and me just hooked up. It's really a once-in-a-lifetime relationship, I think, for both of us. And the opportunity to contribute to this whole body of work has just been very fulfilling. I just feel like I was born to do what I'm doing. The whole thing in this scene is he knows how it ends, because it doesn't matter what Al says.
This office, we believe in Bruce Springsteen.
That's all.
Jon Landau is Bruce's longtime manager, but he's much more than a manager. He's a collaborator, he's a trusted confidant whose partnership with Bruce balances this deep friendship with professional guidance in a way that's unmatched in music.
Jon is not a manager or a producer in any traditional sense of the word. I don't think you can put a label on their relationship. You find something real, I'll deal with the noise.
You deal with the noise.
That's my job.
Thanks, Jon.
They caught the deep, deep emotion that exists between Jon and I, the love that exists between Jon and I, and we're just really magnificent in bringing that to the screen.
Let's burn this place down, Jon.
And I'm happy to report 43 years after the record was released and 50 years after they met, Bruce and Jon are still burning it down.
You tapped into something incredibly powerful, and I'm excited to see where it takes us.
When you write about a musician, there's a chance that you'll hear from people who think it could be a good movie. But as a writer, I know that I don't have rights to the music and I can't offer the life rights of the artist. So when I've gotten people reaching out saying, hey, this would make a good movie, I simply say, I agree. But it was Eric's persistence that really got us to the point where something real could begin to happen.
I received an email from Ellen Goldsmith Bain and Eric, two of our producers. Are you a fan of Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska? And I wrote back, who isn't?
As it turns out, he had been listening to Nebraska while he had been working on Out of the Furnace, sort of on repeat, so he was really familiar with the material.
I read Warren's book. I was immediately taken by it. I could see its cinematic potential, and I said, this is great. So is Bruce on board, and do we have all of his music? And they said, no, Bruce has no idea about this project.
So then we had to strategize about how to get Bruce Springsteen and Jon Landau on board. Obviously, nothing could happen without them.
Warren Zanes and I fly to New Jersey. We meet with Bruce and Jon Landau, both of whom are real cinephiles, and they had seen all of my films.
The tone of his films I really liked. You know, they had a grittiness to them, and, you know, we sat for an afternoon and talked, and he just felt like, outside of being a great guy, he felt like the right guy for the job.
I left that day with a handshake where Bruce Springsteen says, I'd love you to tell my story. And that's where it began.
There's a place out on the edge of town, sir.
I think that the whole album, the tone of it is haunting in a way that I don't think has ever been heard before, and a lot of the things that were bouncing around his head during the Nebraska sessions, personally and also musically, to sort of get this vibe of the sort of dark side of America and the dark side of working people and people's ambitions and dreams.
He was really exploring his demons. He was exploring his childhood. The book talks about how he would get in his car and drive around Freehold and literally see and hear the ghosts of his childhood self, his mom, his father.
Bruce's relationship with his father was complicated. A man who was battling his own demons that didn't allow him to fully connect to Bruce.
The relationship was a very fractured relationship. His dad was never tactile in any way, shape, or form. Never really told him he loved him.
Never let anybody hurt your mother.
Bruce said something about his childhood being both the thing that destroyed him and the thing that made him.
Bruce said to me that he would always remember his parents from black and white images. So I felt like I wanted to evoke those memories in a very formalist way, which is very different from how I shoot the contemporary scenes.
My sister, who's a year younger than me, she held my hand during the whole screening. And the first thing she said to me when the credits came up was, "Isn't it wonderful we have this representation of our family and our family life and our family struggles on film?" It really is.
One other reason that Nebraska has this lasting power, it's flawed. It's unfinished. He only recorded it as demos.
I read about these machines. You know, they're new. You can multi-track at home.
In 1981, he heard about this new technology where you can create an in-home studio.
TAC 144 Porta Studio. It says that you can use it as a multi-track, but do not expect studio quality.
I don't want to engineer or producer judging this stuff. I just wanted to feel like I'm in the room by myself.
Then you found your man.
And then with nobody but himself and Mike Batlin, his guitar tech, in the room, in this bedroom, and this TAC machine, he started laying down some demo tracks that he would then bring into the studio.
I want us to run everything through this Echoplex, all right? On all the tracks we're mixing. Just like Elvis's early Sun records.
This all feels right, yes?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Here, we're gonna play it back through here.
Yep.
So we hear it through this, play down, because as we're mixing it down, it's coming through the Echoplex, which will be the final take, obviously.
When they were listening to the songs they recorded, they were listening back on a boombox that was an old Panasonic, but it slowed down a little bit, and that's the playback that they listened to when they were recording.
I think it's the distance that we're hearing. It's like it's from the past or something.
He tried to re-record them. He didn't like what he came up with.
Chuck, you just master directly off the tape. Please, directly off the tape.
The cassette was recorded so unusually that on vinyl, it would skip, it would jump, it would distort. It simply wouldn't take the sound that was on the cassette. And it took Charlie Plotkin, played by Mark Maron in the film, months to get that cassette onto vinyl.
And it reminds us that there's nothing that can replace the power of a kind of unadorned humanity.
Last night I dreamed that.
You know, at the time, some people aren't happy with Nebraska. They want more, they want Hungry Heart.
I gotta be honest with you, I don't understand why an artist would make this record.
It's a departure.
No.
Yeah, departure.
The Nebraska story is ultimately an inspiration story.
Make it home through the fall.
Springsteen's choice to expose his own humanity with Nebraska was and is, to me, profound.
Despite everything telling him that this was not the record to make and it was not the path to be on, because of his heart, he had to follow through with it. And that takes a certain amount of courage.
That's everything I wanted. That's it.
You got it.
All right? Thank you.
Nebraska and the recording of this album and the struggle and the battle for authenticity is a metaphor for Bruce's life and the battle that he has fought and won and has become the artist that he is by remaining true to himself and to his roots.
Feels good to be back out there.
It's the story of a man who's looking down off the edge of a cliff. And it's about how, he pulls himself out of this thing. I think it's a really human story about somebody making the right choices in their life at a time where that was a very difficult thing to do.
It's an artist that we all know and many love that is at his most painful time of his life. So for Bruce to allow me to tell that story so openly and so honestly and with such vulnerability, I think is just a testament to who he is as an artist. And I'm grateful that he entrusted this story with me.
Happy New Year.
Does Faye live here?
Who are you?
I'm Bruce.
Finding someone to play Bruce Springsteen is as daunting a task as I've ever faced in casting a film. You're talking about someone who's an American icon that we all seem to know, or whatever that version that we gravitate towards of Bruce.
I'm really glad you came.
Me too. Let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
In that first dinner with Eric Robinson, I said, who do you think would make this movie? And he said,
I said Scott Cooper is the only person that I could think of that should write and direct it. And to play Bruce, Jeremy Allen White.
Pure pipe dream stuff. And Eric Robinson called it.
Scott really casts his own movies. He has in mind who he wants for every role. So while we mentioned to him Jeremy Allen White, he'd already sort of been thinking about Jeremy Allen White. And I think when he introduced Jeremy's work to Bruce, Bruce felt like he was also the guy.
I'd been watching The Bear, and there was some sort of physical resemblance, some sort of the way he carried himself, and then there was the way the camera read his internal life. That was really essential. I just said, this is the guy, I didn't have number two.
Jeremy Allen White brings to Bruce that pathos. He has a real depth. He's very introspective in terms of behavior patterns, which is very similar to Bruce when you study him.
Two of the things that Jeremy has that I thought were critical is humility and swagger. And they don't teach swagger at Juilliard. You either have it or you don't. And Jeremy has it, and he has this kind of quiet confidence that Bruce has that I thought would allow him to perfectly embody all of the complexities that I needed.
Scott called me, and he told me a little bit about the story, that we wanted to make a film that is about a musician, but it's a snapshot, this period in Bruce's life.
Jeremy has this kind of natural, lived-in presence, apart from what I see as a physical resemblance of Bruce in 1981 and 82, so much so that Bruce's wife, Patty, when she saw him on set, said, "Oh my God, Bruce, looks like when I first met you."
I think when you start with you,
I had not sung, and I didn't know how to play the guitar, and I knew that was something that Scott wanted. And so I was hesitant and just wanted to make sure that everybody knew, we were going to be taking a leap of faith together. But he said Bruce was a part of the casting process, and once I knew I kind of had Bruce's blessing, that gave me the confidence to accept and kind of go on the journey.
Jeremy Allen White has really worked so incredibly hard to become Bruce in so many different facets of what that means, and Bruce has been very helpful with him. He's really given him a lot of validation on his performance.
The first time I met him was the summer before we started filming. We started filming in fall, in October. And I had this really great, afternoon and evening with him. He took me on a little tour of Freehold, and it was Bruce showing an incredible amount of humility.
Jeremy would call Bruce and ask him about certain lyrics or the way Bruce played guitar. What might Bruce be wearing? So much so that what you see in the film, a lot of it is Bruce's actual wardrobe. Kasia Walicki Mamone, our wonderful costume designer, used that to great effect.
Bruce Springsteen himself brought us a bunch of pieces that we're using a few of them, but we're definitely reflecting, very much studied his style and tried to find a language for Jeremy that is his own version of Bruce, but very faithfully inspired by what Bruce Springsteen was wearing at that period.
Bruce also gave Jeremy a Gibson J200 guitar that he played when he recorded Nebraska. Jeremy uses that in the film. So Bruce's fingerprints are all over the DNA of this film in a way I think that has only enhanced the authenticity that Bruce brings to every facet of his life.
I gotta do something. Just sitting around doing nothing.
Bruce was so caring. He was a dream. He was always available, honest, easy to be around. He wanted me to ask the questions, and he wanted me to do good work and feel good about what we were all going into.
It's an interesting thing seeing yourself portrayed, but Jeremy made it very easy, of course, because one, he's so good in the film, and two, because he didn't try to do any sort of impression. He didn't try to really sound like my voice when I'm speaking. He simply inhabited my inner life.
This wasn't a film, of course, about mimicry. It's a film about finding the essence of who Bruce is. But I think Jeremy's live performance adds profound authenticity to this.
We're rolling, boss, so whenever you're ready.
I remember kind of holding a guitar for the first time and trying to wrap my fingers around the strings, and it just felt so foreign.
The transformative work that Jeremy has done to become Bruce is astonishing.
The performance aspect with all that stuff, that was just time. I got together with JD, who was my guitar teacher, and 4 to 6 times a week for 5 months.
Relax. That's it. That's the only one. Jeremy's a very dedicated guy. We started in July. I was in Alaska working on a project up there. And so for the first 2.5 months we worked together, it was all over Zoom. But he's a very quick learner.
Yes! Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic.
I told him very early on that there's like no real like secret. You know, musicians will play one tiny phrase for days and days and days until the muscle memory and everything, until it becomes second nature. But he took everything I'd show him and go away with it and work on it.
Through the badlands of Wyoming, I killed everything in my bag.
I'd been training with a wonderful vocal coach, Eric Vitro, who has had a lot of experience in getting actors ready for these sorts of films. And that's where things, I think, started to click for me. To be in a recording space, especially one as storied as RCA, and to sing his songs, I started to feel closer to him.
Down on the boardwalk, they're getting ready for a fight. Gonna see what them racket boys can do.
And Bruce called me because he'd listened to some of my recordings, and he was really pleased with them. But he said, you know, you sound like me. I said, okay, that's good. That's what I was trying to do. And he said, but you're singing the song. You're making sense of the song. You're making the song your own. And he was like, that's what I want the filming to be like, you know.
Bruce, in particular, comments all the time about how you would never know that he didn't pick an instrument up or perform or sing or any of this stuff, you know. It's crazy, but it's on him. He did the work.
He has a real tone.
Yeah.
He's got a real, and a good one.
Jeremy came in so studied and so determined, and his singing is unbelievable. And obviously, the acting is a whole other thing. That's what he does. But for somebody to never sing, to go in a studio and record Born in the USA, Born to Run, the entirety of Nebraska, and authentically deliver, I don't know how it's possible.
I think it's cool. Not only did you do the hard stuff, but you did the,
oh my God, no.
Yeah.
I started to feel a sort of shared experience in that process of recording. And I think I found a lot of my confidence there.
I visited on the day that Jeremy was singing, and I walked in as a take was rolling, and I heard him sing this song for the first time, but I couldn't see him performing, and I said, I've never heard this Bruce Springsteen demo of this song before. I wonder where they found this. And then I walked a little further into the room and realized that it was actually Jeremy's voice. That blew my mind.
It wasn't an easy decision to make, to go ahead and fill Bruce's shoes. But because of what was going on in Bruce's life at the time, it felt necessary to try it.
Jeremy has exceeded my expectations. You know, for my $10, it's about as good as screen acting gets.
Maybe everything that dies someday comes back.
Okay, one more.
Background, here we go, and action.
I discovered Bruce's work as a teenager for the first time through my father, who introduced me to Nebraska. So Bruce's work has kind of coursed through my films in a way that makes it very special for me to be able to tell this particular story.
Scott, he's such a big music fan. He understands music so deeply. You know, his first film, Crazy Heart. and he's interested in these characters that Bruce is singing about.
There's a place.
I think the kinds of movies that he makes are a testament to the kind of identity of American cinema that Bruce saw in him as well.
And let's cut.
I'd seen Crazy Heart, so I knew he knew how to handle music in a film. I knew he had a real feel for blue-collar life.
Let's go get
I knew he was a psychological filmmaker, which has been a big part of my work life and of who I am.
Bruce and Scott Cooper have gotten to be incredibly close, like brothers, only over a year. They've really built, man to man, artist to artist, this great relationship.
This is hilarious, bro.
I don't think you can make a film about Bruce Springsteen and not strive for deep authenticity. And by that I mean shooting in New Jersey, on the boardwalk in Asbury, shooting at the Stone Pony, shooting in downtown Freehold, New Jersey. Woo! It just allowed me to channel Bruce's energy directly onto the screen.
I think it was really great to have Bruce talk to us about the authentic places where he was, where he grew up, what mattered to him. And so for us to be able to go back and shoot in those locations is imperative, because anyone who knows Bruce, that is the fabric of his storytelling.
Background and action!
To be in those places helps you as an actor reach a sense of belief in what you're doing.
And action!
Asbury Park is just a huge part of his story and a huge part of our story. When you go now, it's been built up a fair amount. It is a destination. In the early 80s, it was a bit rough and tumble. Bruce is instrumental in rebuilding up that area. The mayor, everyone involved with the town and the permitting obviously was extremely excited for us coming and was more than willing to help and work with us as much as they could. But of course, it's still a functioning town. They still have things going on. But thankfully, a lot of it is still original.
In researching this time in Bruce's life, I would ask Bruce, what are some of the iconic locations that I should capture? He said, Scott, the carousel in Asbury meant so much to me as a child, as a teen. But the carousel as it stands was condemned. The shell was there, but we brought in the actual carousel.
They had sold off the carousel, the town had. And I think the last horse got bought in the early 90s. To bring it back to life was such a huge undertaking that probably all in took us 2-3 months. We had to remove some of the exterior wall to get it to fit in and then put it back. The art department and construction had to go in there and build out so much of it to give you that look that it had.
We recreated to the best of our ability from Bruce's memory and from archival photographs exactly what the arcade was like. And when he walked in the first time, he was deeply, deeply moved.
The Colts Neck House is probably my favorite location for a number of reasons. The original Colts Neck House does still exist, but it has been renovated, heavily renovated. So it does not look at all like what it did. So our scouts went up to Mountain Lakes, which is this north area of Jersey, and we found one house that when he walked in, he actually texted us right after and said, "This is the house." It's an absolute time capsule from the very late 70s, very early 80s.
All right, who's from New Jersey? That's what I want you to do when the music starts playing. You guys look fantastic. Are these all your clothes, or did they give them to you? Oh, yeah? I love the 80s hairstyle, the whole thing. Well, I just want to say thank you for being here and for coming out to our movie. You look fabulous, and all you got to do is go out of your mind, which will be easy when the music starts. And that's all. Just God bless.
We are today at Stone Pony. We are early 80s, and we've been preparing with the design team and this incredible team that I'm working with for quite a few weeks. We plowed through every picture, every piece of research from this period and try to represent the essence of those real people today. It's very much driven by the working class aesthetic. Nevertheless, they are rock stars, so they develop their own individual styles.
The funny thing is that we could have really done this anywhere, but it's just so special to so many people to be in here, and I think it's special for the town for us to be in here as well.
The Stone Pony has changed a little bit. Like, they've added on, they've been able to grow, largely thanks to Bruce and his involvement with them. But we've tried our best otherwise to make sure it was as close to accurate for when he was there, including changing the stage size and brought in the correct lights that the Stone Pony still had in their storage.
In 1982, this backdrop was actually Bruce Springsteen's that we pulled for this particular scene.
Chris Moran got the original Stone Pony from the archives of Bruce and put it in the background. We did bring in all the instruments, and the Stone Pony has a lot of things that they helped us with. And they have a rental house there, and they have stuff that was in the Stone Pony then.
The bulk of it was thankfully stuff that either they still had or is just the space as it is raw, which for the most part is what was there.
Even though Power Station has recorded its fair share of great musicians over the years, of course, starting with the horn section, the Tower of Power, which is how it got its name, Paul McCartney, Madonna, Lady Gaga, and of course, Bruce Springsteen, a lot of great films have scored in this very room. Our composer, Jeremiah Freites, he's one of the founding members of the Lumineers. He also happens to be from New Jersey. I think Jeremiah has complemented all of the on-screen performances beautifully. What also makes it special is the fact that in the film, we shot in this very room.
Every single riff on that record you got down.
Thank you.
Amazing. You know, one thing Scott did is he made a Scott Cooper picture, which is what we wanted. You make a record, you're lucky if you get 70% of what you wanted. But the film he described to me that he wanted to make on the first day we met is 100% plus on the screen. He is an amazing director and a lovely man also.
Good.
There's something going on in the film, the sort of depression, anxiety, or the hole that Bruce felt like he was in. And Bruce has spoken about this pretty openly, but it wasn't an easy decision to make and kind of releasing control. You know, we walked through something together and we came out the other end. And I'll speak for myself, but I can move forward in life with more bravery now because it's done.
I think it is indeed bold on Bruce Springsteen's part to show such remarkable courage in sharing his vulnerability, inspiring us as filmmakers to meet him with equal honesty and bringing a raw intimacy onto the screen that Bruce brought onto his record. And it was my goal to make the film in the same vein that Bruce made the record Nebraska, which is to say, intimate, raw, no gloss. It's a bittersweet ending. The show must go on. Thank you.